Good, how are you?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the letter.
Yep.
Yeah, I read that.
Hello.
Hey, the meeting on 7 o'clock?
It is. That's
Good, you like?
Why?
No, I'm on time.
You're
You're
early.
on time. I know.
You know, 1 minute, go take a lap.
Yeah, that's
There
what
you
I'm
go.
saying. It seems like we're well established.
Do you want to leave and come back?
Huh?
You want to leave and come back?
Yeah, I'll take my 30 seconds. This is the, I read it, but is that the letter that we
That's the
sent?
letter and the agenda.
See, I did my homework, I read the letter.
Look at you. And we're waiting. Are we waiting on Frank?
Yeah, I just have to.
Oh, we do?
Hello. Hello.
You called him in with your.
I did.
She's a powerful woman.
I summoned him and there you were. All right. Are we ready? All right. I'm going to call the Charter Review Commission meeting of it's August 1st at 7 p.m. I'm going to call it to order. Let's do a roll call. Bear with me. The AC. All right, let's just go around the room. Are you going to mark them? Are you
Yeah,
taking
as you
notes?
call them, I'll mark it.
Okay. No, I'm Maribel. I'm just going to mark myself
Recording in
present.
progress.
Joe DeMora,
Present.
Lori Urso,
Present.
Phil Shea,
Present?
Cristalita Figueredo,
Present.
Matilda.
Rodriguez
Thank
present.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. So let's get started. Thank you all for coming. We have members of the Finance Committee and Peter Wingate, Purchasing, to talk about Section 4555-9, small purchases, and the amendment we would like to propose to City Council. The change is to essentially add language to indicate that the amount shall be increased or decreased annually hereafter at the same rate as the Boston Regional Consumer Price Index. I know we had some questions last week with regards to why the Boston Consumer Price Index and what is it
What exactly is it? It just wasn't a term I wasn't familiar with. I tried looking it up online and it still didn't help me. And I'm sure it's fine, but we just wanted, before we put it to a vote, just to get
Right.
more information.
Right.
So,
So, Peter, if you don't mind giving us a...
Yeah, that is, if that draws on language that comes in from the Rhode Island General Law, so that's the guideline that they've used when they establish these minimums themselves. And, most cities and towns have the same minimums, 5,000 and 10,000. But in Chapter 55, the Water Municipal Contracts and Rhode Island General Laws, there's and it's set them at 5,000 and 10,000 for construction. And then it allows for them to increase or decrease. Fortunately, it's mostly increase.
Increase, right.
Inflated at the Boston Regional Consumer Price Index. And there is a website available that tracks the yearly changes for that. Right now, if you go back to 1992, when this particular clause was added to the Rhode Island General Laws, it's about 117% increase.
Yes.
So that 5,000 now would probably closer to 11,000.
But yeah, I was gonna say.
And so forth, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense, but again, so is it it's like a cost of living increase, if you will?
Yeah, exactly. It allows us to be a little more agile.
Yep.
And to, you know, make sure the numbers are.
Yeah. So that would follow state guidelines for following years?
Yeah, that's been in existence since 1992.
Does anybody have any other questions? For Mr. Wingate? Or finance?
You want to let her know what?
I was just
what's
going to say,
going
I assume
on?
this was about what we talked
I
about.
believe it was,
Okay, yeah.
that's
Okay.
what they had
So-
the questions.
Let the record reflect that Brenda Clement is present.
Sorry to be late. I'm sure.
So we are discussing the change to the law, the charter with regards to purchasing. And I think we had.
There was, yeah, she was one that had a question.
Right, and I do have some questions.
Well, I think we were just trying to assure that it was, you probably already asked my question about that it was kind of standard language and consistent with state law, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
right.
Okay,
And the Boston,
yeah,
what do we call it, consumer index?
okay,
That's the index.
That's the closest one to Providence.
right.
No, understood,
Depends-
yep,
depends
yeah,
on
yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing.
New York City wouldn't count because that's, their place is the sky, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah, we just wanted to clarify that it was kind of standard practice,
Sure.
which sounds like you have confirmed that.
Mark, I had a quick note. I don't know if we can add anything to our request at this moment, but if we could, in that same part of the charter, where it directs us to solicit the bids at those numbers, it does require us to advertise in a newspaper having a substantial circulation in the city.
Yep,
That comes at a cost to the city.
Okay.
We advertise, last year we advertised about 45 times. The average cost is somewhere around $250
yep,
per advertisement. Obviously, this was written before the internet sort of took over the newspapers. And most of our, we publish our solicitations the same day online that we do in the Providence Journal. And that's where most of our reach comes from now. We don't really get much response from these little legalized journal. So, you know, we're spending up to about $10,000 a year on these ads that aren't really bringing in our solicitations as well, our online, that we do for free, that brings them in. So if we wanted to strike that out, you know, it would save the city a little bit of money. And that's not a state requirement, by the way. The state doesn't require us to advertise in the newspaper.
okay,
That's the charter, so that's just a good suggestion.
okay. Yeah, we can take that into consideration.
Okay.
I think it's fine, although I thought, and I don't recall, but there is some state law that and there was just a bill this session, which I didn't follow carefully, about postings and requirements. So anyway, we just may
Yeah.
want to flag it for
Oh,
legal
yes,
counsel
I know what
here.
you're referring to.
Yeah, and I'm vague on the details.
Yeah,
here in
and
a
there was
second.
another one too that wanted to raise these minimums.
Right.
I don't think it made it.
I don't think it
so,
made it, but
yeah.
I just, so anyway, just wanted to kind of make sure we check all the boxes to make sure
Right.
we're in compliance.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Right, so,
Awesome. So, why do I not, oh my god, I have so many agendas. None of this makes sense. Yep, so I want to also let the record reflect that Alan Tenrero, did I say that right?
sure.
Correct me.
Pretty cool, that's good.
Is also in attendance. Excellent. All right, so I'm guessing everyone had an opportunity to read the letter that was submitted to the commission.
If I may.
Uh-huh.
I thought, well, we're gonna address that other one first, though. Okay. That's just, let's figure since we had it. Okay.
So I want to take an opportunity to get everybody's thoughts on the email we received, as well as potentially discussing, what solutions we should move forward with. So I've had an opportunity to read the letter, as well as think about pros and cons of this particular proposal. And obviously there are pros and cons on both sides of the arguments. I think and specifically, we're basically removing a very succinct part of our government that people are very comfortable with. But then, on the other hand, it gives us an opportunity to set some guardrails for people to participate instead of having to run an election. So I would like to get your thoughts.
Can I just ask a follow-up question to some of the action items that we talked about last meeting about getting some furthers? First of all, we were supposed to get a proposal from the city council member. I'm sorry.
No.
So no, what does that mean? No, we don't have one, or no?
No, that wouldn't happen because it wasn't their, it's not their proposal. It came from the
No,
community.
but the last, but whoever it was, we had talked at the last meeting, it's still getting their comments and thoughts as to what they want to do.
They will give us their comments when we make their recommendation.
Okay, well, that's.
I think it was discussed as, I think Alan brought it up. What are they looking for?
Right.
So they aren't looking for anything. The community is looking for something. They will not make, they will make their statements heard when we make our recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine, that's their option to do. We wanted to provide some direction on those recommendations based on their feedback, but if they choose not to do that, that's their choice for sure. But then we also had talked about looking at some best practices and trying to get some info from the league and others about kind of the pros and cons of elected versus appointed school committees. And so I would still like to see that before, and to use that to inform our conversation about recommendations.
Agreed. We are still working on compiling that information.
I think that's something we could do as an individual as well. Because we're the child review commission, no need to give her extra work to go do our homework for us.
Well, I'm just, what we're saying is that we contact the League of Cities and Towns, and that we talked about Tim from the School Committee Association to see if they've got some information already compiled. I'm not asking you or any of the staff here to compile it, but working through the associations to try to get that information. I'm just trying to make sure we've got all of our facts in front of us so that we can make good, solid recommendations. I know John well, known him for years. I appreciate his perspective and think he raises some important points, but that's only one voice, right? And so we need to be able to hear from all of the other voices as well, too.
So I've actually read up quite a bit on this. There are a number of university studies available online, legitimate studies that just happen to be available online. Brown University's done a little work on this. There's a lot of dialogue out there with various cities that are debating this subject. It's a minority right now. It's about 20 cities in the country that have gone to an appointed committee. I think in this state we know Providence has one, and it's had its ups and downs. And that one goes back to '69. So that one goes back to when it was launched in Boston, which is, several decades ago. Some of the cities have done well under it in terms of performance outcomes. In some of the studies, it's inconclusive. But I think that, and I hadn't seen Mr. Baxter's letter until after I had done a lot of research on this. I think it's something that we should consider putting before the voters. I think there's been enough expressed in the community about, you know, the unhappiness of some, about, you know, some of what we're seeing with the school committee and the school department. I'm not disputing that's a difficult job, and I know the people in the school committee work hard. But for years, we've had an intractable situation in this city with the education of the students. For example, if you read the kids count that came out this year, all of the statistics available in there. Right now in this city, we have a 26% meeting expectation on 3rd grade reading, only 17% on 8th grade reading. We're at 29% 3rd grade math expectation, 7% less than 10% on the 8th grade. 75% of our schools are targeted for additional intervention. We've got chronic absence problems ranging from 33 to 46%, depending on what schools we're in. And we've got the 3rd highest dropout rate in the state at 19%. And I think that, you know, perhaps the answer would be no, that the residents, the citizens would like to stay with an elected school committee. But I think the question should be put before the council and before the citizens, that would they like to make this change, and should we put the responsibility in the hands of the executive branch to see if we can't find a way to better outcomes for the students here. I think with the new high school being built, it's a good transitional point. And I think, you know, it is a lot of election competition that we're dealing with campaigns in this city. And there may be more qualified, more appropriate people to serve in this capacity that otherwise would not go out on a campaign. So I would certainly vote in favor of putting this question for further consideration.
And building off what you said, I think the last time we had entertained like the hybrid model as well, where it was like some half appointed and half elected kind of thing.
Right.
But I'm just throwing that out there. For
Right.
consideration.
I think to piggyback off of Lori's point, you know, we are giving a school committee that has proven with ineffective leadership. We are going to soon give them $330 million and a plot of land to make a decision that is going to affect our high school students in the city that are currently having issues already, you know, post-COVID. So, you know, we want to make sure we take that under consideration as well.
I don't disagree with any of those statistics. We track all of those statistics too. They're just as bad on many other fronts as well. Pawtucket is not alone, obviously, in terms of the urban core, in terms of those poor outcomes. I agree that current structure doesn't seem to serve us well. I'm just not sure that an appointed one does. I lean a little bit more towards the hybrid model that we talked about. I thought your idea about kind of the district-wide ones, you know, that you have somebody from each council district, and then you have a 3-person or whatever, 4 for whatever we need to make the numbers work as appointed, that bring us in some of those technical things. That I could feel a little more comfortable with, because you still have more, you know, you have voter power, and you also have bringing in some professionalism into the space. Because remember, the current mayor we have is a good mayor. Now it's not always the case, right? You know, you often can get others who you don't agree with, or who have different philosophies on what things look like. And so when you consolidate power for appointment all in one person, that's also not always great either. So, and we're not talking about just one time, right? We're talking about a charter change that would
the future,
would impact the future. So that's what, you know, I'm weighing in my mind as well too. I had not looked at the research, but are there any hybrid models that you came across, or were you probably not looking specifically for that? Just curious as to whether or not that worked. There probably is, but Maybe not, maybe we could be cutting edge.
Super innovative, right? I do want to be able to shift back the conversation to the letter we did receive, and if anybody had any specific opinions with regards to, or any statements that, or anything that was.
It's almost like he had a microphone in the room from our past conversations. I'm sure he's spoken to some of the city council members, as we probably all have, and some of the topics were the same thing. So that's, as I was reading it this morning at 5 a.m. with my morning coffee, I'm saying, wow, gee, it sounded like he was in the room the last time we were there.
Last meeting, right?
Yeah,
I have not
and
spoken
which,
with any city council.
Neither have I.
but you know what? It's Pawtucket, it's small, it's Rhode Island. You're probably related to somebody in the room, you know, and it happens.
Right.
So, not that I disagree with what he said, I'm just saying, it's, you know, there's a lot of points there, as we've already discussed.
I mean, I don't think it's that hard to, if you're a community member that pays attention, these aren't issues that are hidden. These are issues that have been brought up time and time again. So if you're paying attention enough, what we're saying in the room and what other members of the city council have heard from other community members, this is actually a very accurate reflection of what other people have
Fair
said.
enough, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
We don't just, I mean, I personally don't disagree that there isn't some need for change. I just don't know what the right change is yet, either at this point. And it's also not only up to me, right? It ultimately needs to get out to voters, to the city council and others as well. But I just felt we needed to do some due diligence on research around looking at better practices and other practices to see if there was a solid recommendation. I'm leaning more towards the hybrid in my personal opinion, because I think it kind of brings us the best of both worlds. But that may not be the perfect model either. But we then let the voters decide.
And that's why we're here.
It's our job.
Right. Our job is to put together a recommendation to the city council, and the city council, debate it, open it up for public comment, and then make a decision moving forward. So, that our position at the end of this is to put together a recommendation based on our discussions. So.
What's the timeline on the info from the school committee staff and others, or is there some way we can help with that? Get them flyer letter to them. We had talked last time about trying to gather some info from the school committee association and at the League of Cities and Towns to see if they have anything.
Yeah, I think I can reach out and just try to see if there's any information that they have readily available that they can share with us.
Yeah.
I can just reach out via email and CC the commission at that time.
And I don't know if it's appropriate, if it's possible for you to share any of your research, that would be
Am I allowed
helpful.
to send to everyone?
Yes.
I don't think there's any open meetings problems with that. If you do, as long as it's
I'll
shared with
send
all
it to you.
committee members.
Yes.
Perfect, yeah.
That works.
Yeah, I think that was discussed early on, that if it's pertinent to what
Right.
discussing,
And
that's
as long
okay.
as it's shared with the whole group.
Right.
Then you're
Yeah.
fine. So,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I still would like to
Because that's valuable.
chew on that a little bit. Yeah, I would like to chew on that a little bit. But I mean, if we're leaning more towards the model, or if you wanted to make that as a proposal, that what
What's
we
that?
talked about the last time about the hybrid that you elect.
I think we need to present
The rest of the people. who
two.
are here.
I think we need to do two. The hybrid is good, I think.
Yeah.
One for each. If we mimic what the city council does now, we have one elected from each district,
Right.
and then the 3 appointed. One could be legal, one could be finance, one could be facilities. Those could be appointed.
Yeah.
But then you still have an election.
Right.
Okay. Then I was looking at, as I was thinking today, 9 members. You're gonna get 9 people that want to be on the school committee?
Well,
Maybe, possibly, to appoint 9 people.
Get parents, hopefully, and others who would rather.
Well, that would be, I would say, I think we discussed too, at least 3 should be parents.
Yeah, well,
If
that
we
you.
do a fully appointed, if it's fully
Oh, I got it,
appointed,
yeah,
you're gonna have 3 that are,
Yeah.
at least 3 parents, and we're thinking 3 teachers,
yeah,
and then 3 of the, finance, legal, and facilities.
yeah.
That seems like
Would it
one
matter
option too,
Would it matter what school the teachers?
as long as they say Pawtucket. Yeah. They have to be Pawtucket residents, but you would want teachers from Pawtucket schools. They would.
No, my daughter-in-law's a school teacher at Slater, so.
Well, there you go. She
I also would actually say that the 3 appointed would have to reflect the community, the Pawtucket as well, not just 3 people that's the appointees' friends. So it would have to be a bit reflective of the community. Because while she was talking, I was thinking, it's true. Well-informed citizens make decisions, but that's not the reality. And it's not, I'm not defending anybody who doesn't read the newspaper or thing, but there are people who don't have the time to stay informed on what's going on. And I think that's what we need to make that consideration as well when we're making when we're deciding all this, because most of the kids whose parents, these kids who are there, not most, but I think a great percentage of these kids, their parents don't know what's going on, and they're in our hands basically. Whatever we decide is what they get. And I'm speaking this from a former teacher who left teaching because of the administration and the parents. I love the kids. It does. The power was, in my opinion, is the parents and the administration.
Right.
But we have nothing to do with the appointments.
Well,
No, but we have the condition. We made the suggestion for the condition.
right, and
we can-
as the commission, we can make the guardrails what we decide. I mean,
Exactly.
And we
Still
could
be
also
kid.
create in the charter, there is a commission that will be searching for a school committee,
Who's
right?
going to appoint and who's going to approve?
Again, that's our decision. We are.
Just throwing it out there. Just throwing topics out there that
We
need
can
to
talk
take into
about,
consideration.
we can get down to the nuts and bolts
Yeah.
of the appointments. Again, it's whatever comes out of the discussion that we can put in our proposal.
To present to the council.
Right.
Yeah.
So am I reading the room right, that we essentially kind of have 2 options that we're somewhat narrowing down on? One is some sort of a hybrid model, which would have both elected and appointed, and the details of, all of that,
Yeah,
who
we can
appoints all of
figure
that
that
can be
out, right,
figured
right,
out.
right.
And then a all appointed.
Correct.
I'm not hearing any love for status quo.
The status quo is already there.
All election, yeah, so, but I mean, that could be a recommendation, right? From this commission, we've discussed it, we thought about it, we think you should keep it the way
Well,
it is.
that would go
But
to
I'm
the
not
voters.
hearing-
The voters would vote things down, and
Yeah.
then remain status quo.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I was gonna say, I personally don't, my ear just might not be to the ground as much anymore, but I personally don't hear a lot of clamoring from the community for change. We have one letter, and maybe others that are recommended to members here, but there's nobody here right now. I don't hear a lot of stuff. I think that we got to remember in the Rhode Island general law, there's pretty clear specifications and limitations to what school committee members can do. Their policy boards, their hiring of the superintendent is the big thing that they do, and that superintendent, teachers, and staff then put everything into practice. I don't know if it's even possible to find information on an appointed school committee having effectiveness on student outcomes. I bet it's just not the case. I mean, the person that sees the kid every single day, the teacher in the classroom, all those other socioeconomic factors that Pawtucket sort of grapples with. The point around, an appointed school committee having Pawtucket teachers wouldn't really be possible, because they would never be able to vote upon their own collective bargaining agreement and other thing. Any policy that ever affects the teachers and their quorums would be totally
Good point.
impacted. So, and I'm not saying I'm not open to change, but to me, I'd like to see other information about elected, like you were talking about, and hear, does Providence or whoever has it, does it actually work or impact? I think, to be honest, anytime we're talking about appointed anything like this in government, it's for more municipal control from the administration, city council. Every argument you could make for an appointed school committee, you could make for an appointed city council. It's very easy for a city council to call them up, hey, my pothole still isn't fixed. Okay, I'm gonna fix that pothole. And it's fixed the next day. Hey, this kid's not learning math. Okay, our 3 appointed school committee members, they're gonna fix that. You know, so, you know, is there a way to, you know, get to a hybrid? I bet there is. I think that like that's the thing, is like a pragmatic centrist. You have representative from each council district that's elected. You have a few that are appointed. Maybe, I don't even know if we can say in certain areas per se, but some make sense. Maybe finance, facility. But to what extent? Remember that they're still going to be at a policy oversight extent. Right. They can never really jump in and get their hands dirty like the superintendent's job is. So just know that there's like limitations to what we're talking about. It is a little bit about more control, which is fine, and oversight. But you know, I think we got to be kind of honest about that too. But I see the hybrid as, like, for me, I'd be like, okay,
You could try it, yeah.
that sounds good. You still have elected voice. You have some appointed people. Know that an appointed increase in number. We'd also have to know, it's not much, but is there what's the cost of that? Because school committee members are not much. They're given a stipend. It might not be a lot, but it could be that 10,000 you was talking about, you know, or something like that. So
we just founded for them.
yeah. So just,
We just saved the city money.
just know that too.
Even Steven now.
Maybe it's a first good foray into that and see how it works. You know, I think your point was good. I mean, what if the voters put in a city council and a mayor for whatever reason that
Hates schools.
you know? Do you want those folks appointing your school board, or do you want the citizens to have their voice there? You know. So that's sort of my. I think the hybrid for me is where I land if I hear more information.
And my other concern, in realizing that there is some desire to put it on the ballot this fall, you know, in addition to doing all the due diligence and making informed decisions and realizing that, you know, we're making recommendations to the council, I'm also just concerned, this is an off-year election, really low voter turnout, and this is a big question. And so, you know, that just, again, the optics of doing it at this election bother me.
So let's put this, I can actually put that one into perspective for you. Next year, we will have another school committee election if we don't make a charter change.
I understand.
So, you know, and that's...
I understand. It's my own personal, I know what voter turnout is going to be like, and I know how, you know, big of a question and impact this will be. So that's just my own personal beef, and I'll deal with it as we can once we vote on recommendations. So,
You know, the charter change is not we making it. We
Right.
can put it out
No,
there,
right.
the voters may say no.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then we,
That's right.
And
I
I
mean-
think, you know, to Phil's point about the teachers, I was thinking that same thing about the chain of command, but that doesn't mean we can't have teachers who live in Pawtucket but don't teach.
Right, no, that's a good point that Alan brought up.
You know,
No, that's,
certainly
yeah, I wasn't even
the
thinking that, I'm
appointment
just
of
thinking,
educators.
you know, city council, you know, you live in the city, that type of thing, you're more invested, but
Right.
Alan brought up a great
Yeah.
point, again.
The charities would just be any health
Yeah.
benefits that continue after they are still in the pension system. That's the only thing that
I
continues.
think we could make the argument with the city council too, that there are probably people we can think of in the community that would be great city councilors, but they would never wage a campaign. They would
Right.
never want to go through an election. And we can't, you know, tap into those people because of the process. So, you know, it's just that kind of, you know, thing with an election, that the people we probably think would make great school committee members, and they would never run an election. So, you know, maybe the hybrid is the answer to that, but,
So are we in favor of like elect school committee or put it on the ballot?
Well, we're not putting it up for a motion
Yeah,
today.
right now we're
This is the point today would be to just discuss this letter, kind of get our viewpoints, have our next steps, which is, you know, get some more information gathering, and then reconvene tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night?
tomorrow night?
Yep, there's another meeting.
How many council reps are there for the different? How many districts?
6 districts.
There's 6 districts and then 3 at large.
So you could go to 9, just like appointed
Yeah,
council,
if they're
basically.
elected.
Yeah, 7 to 9.
But the 3 would be appointed.
Right, 6
Yeah.
elected and 3 appointed.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and it still makes me happy because you still have the electeds kind of having more, so there's kind of some voter
This is amazing.
accountability.
Um,
I'm sorry, sir, I don't know you.
I'm a reporter.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to meet you. Waiting for public comment, but I've just never seen more of a
So
rush.
we are not,
I
we're
know.
not at public comment.
I know you're not. You rarely are.
No, I was just touching back to this point. I wouldn't go to, like, my personal opinion, all appointed, we're going back to the same thing, like you said, just control. That's not cool. But also the status quo, I think the evidence is clear, it's not working.
Right.
So
Is it not
it's
working?
it's not working.
because of the.
Sir, we're not at public comment.
You never are. It's okay.
It's not working, so it's like I said, we've been discussing the hybrid and stuff. So I'm just answering because it said it's that leave it as it is. If it's not broken, that's not big. It is broken. It hasn't been reported that it's broken.
I guess it's the evidence for that is the thing that I get, and again, it could be my issue of not really having my ear to the ground on that kind of stuff as much. I've read different articles. Even when you read this letter, you know, you didn't go back quick enough after COVID. I mean, it's so issue-based, lacks context, lacks so many things there, and so. You know, I think I've said at a different meeting too. To me, the charter is it's our city constitution, and the constitution is something to me that just isn't changed willy-nilly. And so, is there that level of voice that? And I'm asking you guys too, because you would know better than I would. But is there that level of voice in the community of discontent and need for change to disenfranchise voters?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes.
And just personally, I never had more joy when my son's mother moved out of Pawtucket and went to school in Lincoln. Just because me, like I said, I was a teacher and I worked in Pawtucket schools. I seen the disparities when I worked at Valley Elementary, and then you see all the other elementary schools, and it's like, this is incredible. How could there be so much? And the parents know it too, but most of the parents who are frustrated, first, they don't have the time to be as updated and well informed as the people who are in those committees. And it's just the way, like, they don't even have time to come and complain. That's how bad it is. And like I said, there's an old saying where I come from: where there's smoke, there's a fire. And we're discussing this because we see the smoke.
Why do we trust the will of the voter to elect the city council, but not the will of the voter to elect the school committee?
Right, I'm
just asking
in
a
my
question
position
for
in general,
discussion.
I'm for the hybrid. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that way there's the ones that the voters have, and then there's appointments, so we can make sure there's some professionals in there, and it's not just six people.
Yeah, but that question is an interesting one. So why would my informed vote for city council be an informed vote, and my vote for school committee, I don't know what I'm talking about? Why is that? I'm wondering.
Well, and Alan,
You know.
in experience, I can't see your face, I'm sorry.
I didn't sit over there because it's freezing. It's so cold. It's so cold.
I can move it, I hope there's
No,
no
it's,
space.
Folks that run for city council usually are more engaged. I'm sorry, my opinion makes you crazy, sir.
No, but there's no basis in fact.
Is he allowed to be here and interrupt our meetings?
No, he's only
I'm sorry, I apologize.
He's allowed
It's
to
just
be
the-
here,
Here,
but
he does not-
he shouldn't be disrupting
Thank
the
you.
meeting.
If he's disruptive, that could, you know.
And he should know better.
What I think is
He's not a
people
member
that
of
run
the
for city council, that they run more of a campaign, they raise more funds, and you see these people out more. Whereas with school committee, because it's strictly at large, they're not in districts. They don't live in your district. You don't know the person. Whereas a city councilor, they campaign in your area.
Yeah, so maybe the representative nature of it is good. Like Schanbacher.
Yeah.
Was a school committee member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
voted her in.
Yeah.
She's running for Congress now.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, so,
Yeah.
and we used to talk about how and this does happen on school committees, maybe for the reason you're talking about, but people run for that as the stepping stone to the city council, but eventually then become city councilors, you know?
well, it wasn't too many, because I asked
no.
the same question. There
Yeah,
was a kid, I think,
some.
Michael Ruggio, was he school
Mike
committee?
Rizzo,
No, city council.
Wilden Hain,
Wilden
Bart.
Yeah, so it's not like that's
Yeah.
the,
No, yeah.
your school committee, next thing you're on city council. It's not the stepping. Some people, school committee, that's fine for them.
But I guess to me, that's part of the crux though, like the change to the charter really does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's saying the voter, you know, you vote towards, because we need to appoint it, and here's why, and the why I guess is gonna have to be pretty powerful in that sense too.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's the voters want status quo, they want to keep the status quo.
Could be, yeah.
But there are other areas where we vote and allow the city council to appoint, and they're pretty significant, such as where zoning or planning are involved. You know, we don't vote on those people, we rely on the judgment of the people we elect to appoint.
The thing I'd equate to that though is there's a superintendent and directors of various departments, leaders of various schools. We don't elect any of them, and we depend on the superintendent to hire in the school committee to ultimately hire in the contract. You know, so same thing there.
We have employees that oversee planning and zoning too, and so there's hired people in between.
Right.
I mean, we could probably slice it and dice it.
Yeah, you can slice it all in
Ways.
a bunch of different ways, right? So.
It's just the question of, do we want to allow the voters to have a say? I think, you know, with the point you brought up, Alan, about the COVID return, if there was ever a time you heard from the public, it was then. I think there was an absolute outcry from the parents of the students over that decision and it's not just they didn't, from what I got from Mr. Baxter's letter, it wasn't just that, they didn't let them return, it was that they made this decision behind closed doors without allowing input, and then you really did hear, the public outcry.
Because Catholic schools went to school.
Well, and
During COVID.
probably other public schools.
But I mean, in Pawtucket, my grandkids went to St. Teresa's, and they went to school during COVID, but I lived directly across the street from public school, and there was nobody there. So that's where the outcry would come from. You say, well, if these kids can go to Catholic school and they, were fine, why can't my child go to public school? That's where the outcry comes.
And it's probably how.
But would the
other
structure
matters,
change
yeah,
that?
right.
If you, with the.
No, I'm not saying it would. I'm
change
just
that.
saying that's the latest, the
Yeah.
outcry
Well,
that
it's
you
just
heard.
we're
That's the
saying,
latest.
Yeah,
public,
yeah,
that's
right.
what
Yeah.
you hear.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
saying
I
it
get
would.
it.
I'm not saying it
By the
would.
way, I love discussions like this. I do, and I love to think on other sides and get stuff out. But I could see some of the things that you went through, the educational or the student outcomes that we're seeing in the city. You could see a few informed voters in the city saying, levels of poverty, lack of affordable housing, lack of quality health care, lack of quality food and access to food. All these things are actually city council policies.
Mhm.
And the city of Pawtucket doesn't do what they need to be doing for our kids, and that's impacting their educational outcomes. I think we need to appoint the city council. So it's it's so
Keep
interesting.
talking, Alan. You might be Allenton Railroad for mayor.
No, but let's face it. It's not just. It's not.
No,
it's
no.
not
They're
just.
all
We
connected,
know
yeah.
socioeconomics.
Right.
And so many other factors are as great as sometimes what can be happening in the classroom.
Yeah,
Right.
all
It's
these
clear.
social
Oh, yeah.
determinants happen.
But you can see somebody making that argument, you know what I mean? Because we're making the argument that no. The policy framework is not good at the school level, and that's why our educational outcomes, that's why we need to change. So,
Well, what I said exactly was that's why I would vote for putting it before the voters.
yeah.
Yeah.
At least give them a chance.
Yeah.
Because we're going right back, we just came back to, you can't, we're looking at it, Larry, in black and white. Oh, it's not there's no problem, there's no big outcry. But again, it's not all black and white. There's a lot of gray areas. And if you're looking for the gray areas to come with hard concrete, oh, this, you can't tell me why, so we're just going to keep it like it is. No. And it's ignorant for us to even think that it's black and white like that. There's a problem, and there needs to, if nothing else, we give the voter, we give the voters an option, something else to look forward to.
Right.
And if they like it, they'll status quo, they'll stay that way. But that's up to the voters. And if we're a responsible council, we're supposed to give them options.
Yeah. I guess the honesty of how does the appointed nature of the school committee fix all those problems?
Yeah.
That's not for us. That's not, we can't.
Well, we have to honestly be able to say that we're making a change to the charter because we believe the fix will do this.
Right. And I think that's the purpose of the guardrails, right? So, obviously, the Rhode Island general laws only have one specific, requirement. You have to be over 18 and you have to live in the district, right? Or in the city to be a part of something like this. But we could add to it, right? And that's up for us to do that. Do we need somebody with an accounting and a finance background to be on the school committee to make decisions that are that make fiscal sense for the city and the schools? Do we need an attorney to understand what they can and cannot do on the school committee?
And is it aware of some best practices?
Right. Do you get somebody from facilities who is actually employed or has been recently retired to help understand those issues? Right. That's kind of the guardrails that we put in place. That a parent, an active parent in the school district, and then ultimately. Does the commission create a commission to search for a school committee, and solicit resumes of people who are actually interested, right? Because you may run a campaign, but we don't know any ulterior motives. I think back to what we were talking about, is it a stepping stone? Or is it just, because you actually want to make a difference for your school committee and the schools in the district? So do we solicit people's interest to come onto this, or do we just allow someone to just, randomly appoint a human onto this committee? I think that's for us to decide here. That's why we can put in our recommendation how specific we want these people to be involved.
How are we listening to parents? Is anybody out there listening to parents, maybe?
Or teachers, or...
there is public
maybe
input,
do a rally
right?
just to see,
There is public input. If you guys have people and know people that are willing to come and give us their opinions, definitely let them know we're soliciting opinions of people to come in and talk to us during public input.
I think that's why some of us are, I'm hoping that's why some of us are appointed. Those of us who are active in the community, have our ear to the street and know what's going on with these parents in their houses and why they're frustrated, their kids are dropping out of school because, I think that's the reason why we're part of this commission.
That's big.
A lot of us. Because, like I said, for myself, I'm everywhere and people complain to me like I could do something. But the fact that we're here to represent those people.
Agreed. Yeah, I know one particular person that comes to mind. His wife was a school teacher, is no longer teaching in the district, has chosen to no longer be back. An excellent teacher. I can't say anything awful about her. She's great. And has chosen to not return because of the administration, because of a lot of things that she brought up. And I'm sure he'd be willing to, her husband, who's going through this alongside her, would be willing to come in and testify. But, we have to be, I think, we had to hear someone's opinion first to get the conversation going, and then build upon, I think you guys have put together a really good next steps, which is, obviously we want to look at, what information we could get, either any research from the League of Cities and Towns, and then Lori's research, I'll circulate once I receive that. so that we can kind of digest that and start putting people's attention to potentially come in and talk to us, right? Because we want those opinions. We could definitely do that. So
one of the things that I think you'll hear a different way to go about maybe what the city's trying to achieve here is that there are cities that they most likely have better partnerships between their elected bodies and their mayor, right? And when they have that, they decide, you know, as a city, we're going to share the finance director that manages both the school and the city together, the purchasing person that does both those things, the technology director, you know, there are certain positions that would
Consolidation.
there would be an economy of scale for the city too, because we certainly wouldn't be then hiring a business administrator for the school department and a business administrator here. I don't know what that means for like an assistant or extra clerical. I have no idea like the bulk of the work, but that's a way to get to that partnership control issue around the big areas. Because I think that's almost more powerful sometimes than this finance expert that's appointed onto the school committee. I think they have less juice in the conversation, you know. I think there's some position. There's some position that is shared. I think now is there one that you know of that's shared between the school department and the city? At one time, I think it was. I forget his name, Hirsch Christino, I think it was like the IT guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
right?
the building official.
Oh,
There, with Central Plaza.
yeah, and so, you know, there's a model there for it, you know, and I don't know if the bodies have to agree to that, or if the city council and they can just make that happen. But it's just another way of doing what you're talking about that gets to the same outcome, I think, for us as a city.
Is that necessarily, obviously, a charter change, per se?
No, right.
Yeah, I don't think that's a charter.
That wouldn't be
Yeah.
a charter change. Right.
All right, so Madam Chair, I think you're right that we've got some, you know, questions and information that some committee members, like came in the neck me want first. But is it realistic to think that we will have that by tomorrow?
Tracy?
I don't think
I
so.
think I'll reach out. I mean, I can reach out tonight, and will we get something by tomorrow? I can't guarantee that, but I can try to
Yeah.
let them know that we're meeting, and if there's any information that they can share with us.
Yeah, and then I think we could, Laura, if you
I
could.
can send that one again.
Yeah, perfect. And I can get that forwarded over to you guys so you guys can digest that.
So I started just jotting down different questions, the hybrid and the fully appointed, of what we need. Just like who appoints, who approves, school committee president or chairman, what is it called, chairman? School committee chairman.
Yeah.
Can it be anyone? Say if it's a fully appointed, I mean, say if it's the 6 districts, like the hybrid, can it be anyone on that chair? Are we looking at staggered? I had mentioned that previous, in terms of John Baxter's letter, at the outset.
Right.
Staggered terms, so you're not wiping out the entire school
Yeah.
committee at
Yeah.
one time. You know, these are just things to think about. That's I just started jotting down some notes.
Yeah.
Let's-
Staggers are always smart, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
At the beginning, yeah,
Experience wise, isn't
the
it?
experience
Yeah.
wise,
I think so.
Yep. So that, I mean, that's just, I jotted down some notes just for folks to kind of think about.
Can you send those out so that we can kind of all add to this?
Yeah, sure.
Or,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, if you want to send this to me, I can.
When I get home, I'll send it, I'll
I
put
can
it in
create a
an email.
Google Doc and then I
That'd be
can
great.
share it to you guys.
Yeah, when I get home, I'll send it to you in an email.
Perfect.
That's
I
fine.
will work on that tonight.
Because I think it might spark other thoughts from others. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if we all,
Yeah.
just add on to it and do different things. I mean, I have an hour drive to work every day, so that's when I do my best, that's when I do my best thinking.
Should be
Uh,
do your best try.
So we need to think about that.
Joe, I worked there for 12 years, 13 years ago, and now I'm almost on a year now. I know the road. Autopilot, and Just go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do like the momentum that we have going. I would like to keep the meeting for tomorrow, if possible, if we can. I think
I will be late again, unfortunately, so.
You weren't that late.
Well,
It's
I was
okay.
later than I want to be, which is I prefer to be early, so.
I'm sorry, can I just say something? As a parent, and that I'm quite involved with the school department, I call for meetings, and as Joe mentioned, he's involved in the community with the school department as much as I am involved. And as I see things, the way things are, they cannot stay. This has to be a change. There has to be a change. And it's of course, it's a big responsibility. What are we doing to bring this information out to the community, to the parents that we have a lot of parents that are uneducated. They don't have time to be on, to what are we doing to bring this information? We're only going to have a handful of people voting on this.
Right. I can start to answer that by, so what we are doing today and what we will be doing for the next couple of meetings is putting together a recommendation for the city council, right? If the city council decides to move it forward and put it on the ballot, we can then, as a commission, decide to host, I think you had mentioned, some community sessions. We're on this commission because we are community leaders, and we are leaders that kind of have our ear to the ground and can have those conversations with parents. So there might be a time when you know that there are particular subsect of parents that want to get together, then we could create a community session to talk about what is on the ballot. What does it mean for you? And here's how you can make an informed decision. I think Brenda brought that up early on. How do we get this information out? Because not for nothing, I mean, the election is, I want to say the general is like October? November, thank you. So, we definitely want to make sure that the community gets as much information as they need to make this informed decision.
But, I was just going to say, I agree that would be if the council decides to move forward, but I would prefer that we do some of that public input before we make a recommendation to the council, because I think we need that feedback from parents and from others. Maybe parents say, don't even think about a hybrid, you just need to go to an appointed, and that's the only way to do it. I don't know, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but I think we still need more due diligence up front.
Right.
I just want to point out, I guess we call it an irony. I don't know if that's the right word, but that you're saying that the voters, community people, you're involved, they're upset, and we're saying that they're informed enough to make a decision of a change to the charter to create an appointed school committee. However, they're not informed enough to use the next election to change out the entire school committee based on their performance.
So
Well, I'm saying, how is a voter trusted here on something like this, but not trusted to make a decision about who they want to represent them for school committee?
That's the same thing you're going back to, and assuming that everybody's informed, and that's why I said it's our responsibility. She's here because she's informed that there's a lot of people who are not informed. And then you say, yes, in a perfect world, the voters will go and say, this is the best and it's happy for all. The people who don't have time to vote, the people who think, and it's not black and white like you think, and it's not broken, don't fix it. It's broken, it's just not stinking yet. And also, I was shocked when he said Pawtucket's third on the list for failing schools. I thought they were second, because I thought in Providence and naturally, I work in Pawtucket. I thought naturally Pawtucket would be next in line, so that's good news. And third is not.
Providence is not in the top three.
But I was shocked that Pawtucket.
Yep.
Yeah, I was shocked that Pawtucket is not second. So.
What about something like a letter to the editor, the breeze, or some ways of getting information out to the public What's the deadline for making the
I don't think that's
recommendation?
our purview is to get information.
Well, but.
So-
Well, to solicit opinions.
Just to
I mean,
say,
it
this
gets
is
posted.
happening and, to ask people. to-
Yeah.
Again, I mean, this is a public commission, we have public input. We
Right,
can,
right.
If someone wanted to write a letter to the editor to come in and have people, pay attention, I think that's definitely it. We could definitely do that now. City council will do it once it goes up for their debate as well.
I think we're so afraid of change, we're forgetting why we are here.
Right.
We were appointed because we understand the communities and the needs of the communities, and some of us, that's the feeling I'm getting, are so afraid of making a change and being wrong that we're going to keep the status quo.
And I'm going to piggyback off of what you're saying. We're not making the change.
Yeah, we're just recommending changes.
Right.
Yeah, we're not making the changes, but we could be so afraid that we just stand here and there's no recommendations or anything, and the status quo continues. Some people think it's fine. It's not broken.
Yeah.
But it's starting to stink.
And I will say this, as we're kind of wrapping up. I can tell you that there were numerous people who went in to vote in the last election and went down the row on the school committee, did not know a member of those people, and voted in alphabetical order. Why? Because that is what they did. That is what they thought they were doing right. So if we have 11, we had like 11 or 12 people on the ballot, and we need 7 people. The top 7 people were the ones that were elected, because that's how most people vote.
I was one of those people because I didn't know any of those people, and I was like, this one sounds like they're smart. This one sounds like I was going by names and which one sounds smart because I didn't know.
But then structure doesn't help you with that, right? And that's the problem, right? Is because that doesn't help you change that. What helps you change it is more engagement and understanding from people, and more diverse people running for the school committee. But your structure doesn't change that.
And so if I may bring it back to the first topic we had when the gentleman was sitting, if I forget his name from
Peter.
Okay. How do we go ahead and vote on that? Does Frank need to write something up on that?
We can. We don't need a motion on that today. We can.
No, I'm not saying. I don't want to lose sight of that.
Yep. No.
We still gotta
100%.
take care
So
of
that
that.
will definitely.
That's the same
Yeah.
reason why I was. Sorry, I didn't mean to challenge your agenda, but I was like, we're hot with this. Let's get it out of the way.
It's an easier one.
But it was nothing. It's just like, I think we have some other answers, so we can put another one to the side.
No.
Oh yeah. That was.
So we're all going to have midnight reading today. Thanks a lot.
No, that's great. At least there's something.
Are we ready to open? Are we ready to open it up for public input?
I am,
And again, I'll send those notes out. She's going to send her
Yeah,
notes in
perfect.
for the commission.
That works.
Just a
Excellent.
reminder, it's 8 o'clock. 8:01 now.
Yes. So.
Finally, my time. Thank you. Forgive my frustration here. I'm actually glad that you have public input at the end of the meeting. Do I have 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
2 minutes.
3 minutes, great. A couple of observations. First of all, I recognize this gentleman from school board meetings. I go to virtually every school committee meeting, even the special ones, sometimes even the policy ones, to report on them. There's a lot of issues here in Pawtucket, but in fact, there's some serious issues in Pawtucket. But looking at them somewhat objectively, I would argue that most of the issues actually emanate from this building, not the school committee. And I'll go into a couple of real quick specifics, but there's a complete, they would call it my generation as a boomer, the bum's rush here, to quickly change the system. Folks haven't even really determined that the actual structure is the problem here. Because I will argue that Providence has got a similar system that you want, and they've got some terrible, and people are screaming over there for an elected school board. So you haven't determined that the school board is the problem. The real problem, as I see it, as someone who goes to city council meetings too, first meeting here, it won't be my last, is that the mayor's office is hell-bent to change the charter because he's PO'd that he didn't get the money this year from the school board. That's the problem. So now the knee-jerk rush is to get this done before November. I would argue something like this is an important, intelligent conversation to be had. To do it in 2 or 3 months? No. This is political expediency at work. Let me give you a specific. Shea High School. How many are you familiar with the NEASC situation?
The what, sorry?
The NEASC situation.
Accreditation.
Accreditation.
Yes.
All right, so what's the holdup in terms of getting that situation fixed? Because it's not educational, ironically. What's the problem with NEASC right now? Why does NEASC hate Shea High School? I'm being facetious. Why don't they like it?
We got it.
Well, we're not going to answer.
No, you actually, just so you understand, under state law, you can answer me. You just choose not to. It's okay. All right.
No.
The problem is that the city refuses to release and has done everything they can. And I've interviewed the head of RIDE. Done everything they can to obstruct the bond money, not the most recent unified high school bond money, but the bond money from years ago. All right, 5 years ago, to go for the needed repairs that would have prevented the, if you will, Shea High School with getting served with potentially losing their accreditation in about 60 days. The mayor's office has done everything possible to obstruct that process on money that was approved by the bondholder. Why? Probably because, as many people allege, the city of Pawtucket simply can't afford the debt service on all these different bonds, between the stadium, between this, between that. That's the problem. Which, by the way, your points are wonderful, but the only thing I'll disagree with is the notion of merging chief financial officers. The city of Pawtucket School Committee is finding out right now what a loss they took with the departure of their chief financial officer to, I believe, Smithfield. Because the problem is that these aren't generally financial concepts. The expertise involved in running a school system is off the charts in terms of federal laws, state laws, financial laws. To your point about the school committee not having people, well, first of all, they've got their own lawyer, they've got their own chief financial officer normally, and I will tell you that the mix of backgrounds, including the people who have experience in big building construction, is pretty significant. You guys are blessed in this today. I cover school boards all over the state. I go to town meetings 4 or 5 nights a week. When I will tell you that you have one of the better school committees in the state. The problem is they haven't done Don Grebien's bidding. That's why you're here and a few other people are in this room right now. I get that. It's politics. It's not badminton. But be intellectually honest. Take the time to do right by the people of Pawtucket. This is not a 2-month thing where you can slam through for political retribution the fact that the school board didn't come up and take money out of their capital expenditures fund and actually use it to support the city budget. Which, by the way, I don't know, maybe $10 million in APRA money that's being put towards a soccer stadium, just like last time we talked, I think it was the baseball stadium.
Right.
Aren't you glad you dodged that bullet? Right? Ask Worcester how they feel about that baseball stadium right now.
All right, so our 2 minutes.
Your administration's a failure. Don't use politics to short circuit the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow 7 o'clock.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So,
Make a motion. Second.
Moved.
Thank you.
Folks, we're going to tune out right now. I hope you've enjoyed listening. Please share this to people. Ms. Urso, you were concerned about not getting the news out? The news is out tonight. So please share this with other people. We'll be writing about it tonight. I don't know that I've seen a bum's rush for political retribution like this. Well, since a soccer stadium. Before that was a baseball stadium. Before that was every other sport. We'll be back. Facebook.com/Coalition Radio, on the Mighty Mighty Twitter at Coalition_Radio. You crazy kids have a good night. I'm going to go edit this bomb.